What's up, YouTube? If you clicked on this video, you're probably wondering, just like I was, why does the trigger in my Glock 41 suck? You've probably looked into putting 3.5 pound connectors, trigger kits. I even researched and looked into people putting Gen 3 trigger bars back in their Gen 4 gun, which is the Glock 41 is only Gen 4. And finally, I just decided to go for it, and I did a mod to my trigger bar that some people said was not safe. Sorry about that. Some people were saying that it was not reliable, and that's just not the case. They were trying to go over the fact that the Glock 4 Gen 4 trigger bar has got the bump on it. Okay, so I've got my Glock 19 Gen 4, my Glock 34 Gen 3, my Glock 41 Gen 4, all of them stripped out, or the slides off of them, so you can see the difference. This is my Glock 19, and you can see right there you've got the Gen 4 bump on the side of that trigger bar. And some of you may already know what that's supposed to do. It's supposed to ride along this edge of the slide right near your little plunger safety, to where it supposedly keeps your trigger bar from flexing off of that plunger while you're pulling the trigger. And while this is true, it does do that in the 9mm and the 40 calibers, and possibly in the Model 20s and the 21s, the large frames. But this is where the Glock 41 differs, and the Glock 41 has the same profile slide as a 9mm. It's actually a few ounces lighter total than the Glock 21. And there's a huge difference that I noticed in mine. If we take a look, here's the Glock 34. If you look, pretty normal, but this rail right next to the plunger is completely flat, right? Okay. Well, if you look, this rail right there next to the plunger has got a little divot in it. And if you see, it's cut that way so that the plunger can fit in there. What was happening, I believe, in mine, my Glock 41, was this bump as I was pulling the trigger was moving along that rail, and which that bump is supposed to keep the trigger bar from flexing and moving around. That bump was actually popping into that little divot, and it was hanging up. I was getting a lot more poundage than I should have been. And I have a 3.5 pound connector in here, and as you can see, I've polished the crap out of everything in there. I mean, this plunger's polished. I've done the whole 25-cent trigger job, so I mean, at the very least, I should have had around a 4-pound trigger pull, which I do have in these. But I was just still had a terrible trigger pull. And I noticed that, so I figured, trigger bars are only, what, 13 bucks? So, I mean, if I screw one up, it's 13 bucks. It's no big deal. So what I did is I completely sanded off. Actually, I used a fairly coarse polishing wheel and completely removed that bump. And then I polished it down, and my trigger pull in my Glock 41 now is almost like in my Glock 34. And my Glock 34, of course, is a competition model. It's confirmed that the trigger pull in this is around 3 to 3.5 pounds stock, completely stock. I finally did go in and polish some things. It didn't lighten it up, it just made it a little more crisp. And this trigger is actually still better than this one. But this trigger pull is now almost as good. It's a little more spongy, but just removing that not only made my trigger better, but if you watch your trigger through your pistol grip or through your magazine well while you're pulling the trigger, like I said, I could see my trigger bar moving back and forth both when I was pulling and going to reset, and now it's straighter. So now I believe that it is safer, for one, and my trigger pull is better. If you're having the same problems with your Glock 41 as far as, you know, chasing a good trigger pull, stock, if you want to leave your trigger stock, this, I greatly recommend doing this. If you're after, you know, a super nice, you know, super short reset and everything, you know, you might want to invest the money in a Zev or an agency, because the only way you're going to get that kind of trigger pull is to buy that trigger. But I have to say my reset is shorter, it's crisper, my trigger pull is better, lighter, you know, it's vastly improved. So I hope if you guys are having trouble, I hope that helps you out a little bit. Anyway, stay safe out there.